If you've listened to this program for any length of time, you know that I'm very fond of saying, if you grew it, now eat it. Because the healthiest food you can eat is the food you grow yourself. But obviously, you can't eat all that fresh food all at once. You want to save it for the balance of the year. And you do that through a variety of means, including freezing, dehydrating, canning, water bath canning, pickling, and maybe a couple of preservation techniques you're not too familiar with, fermenting and freeze drying. We are going to talk to the authors of the book, The Preserver's Garden, today. It's all about how to grow a garden for fermenting, canning, pickling, dehydrating, freeze drying, and a lot more. It's Staci and Jeremy Hill. They're the owners of Gooseberry Bridge Farm, located in the Ozark Mountains of southwestern Missouri. They moved from the typical house at the end of a cul-de-sac in a subdivision to 11-acre farm almost 10 years ago, and they haven't looked back. In addition to producing and preserving as much of their own food as possible by canning and freezing and dehydrating and freeze-drying their garden harvest, they also operate a you-pick flower farm with different varieties of flowers throughout the year. Their goals are to share their farm with the community and to be as self-sufficient as possible within the boundaries of really what is realistic in today's world. And they're doing that all and also raising 6 children. God bless them. Jeremy and Staci Hill, thanks for joining us today on the Beyond the Garden Basics podcast.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here because I've got questions about fermenting and freeze drying especially. But let's talk a little bit about the garden climate you're growing in. Now, you're in southwestern Missouri, so that is what, USDA zone 6 or 7?
6, low 6. We're kind of in a weird spot because we have a microclimate here. So on the zone map, we're in a little circle where we're a zone colder than the area immediately around us. And then in addition to that, we get colder, then it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, we like to say we're in a little stretch of our own little pocket of western Nebraska here in southern Missouri.
Yeah.
And so winter lows might fall down to what, about a little bit below 0?
We get to -10 most years, and the about half the time our little microclimate gets down to -15.
Yeah.
But only like briefly, like once or twice a year.
Yeah, we've hit -18 once this year.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yes, that makes you move faster. In order to protect things, possibly. My story is not too unfamiliar to you then, because I too went from suburban purgatory to a 10-acre parcel where it wasn't a farm, it was just pasture land, but I turned it into something that was producing heirloom ornamental popcorn for sale, and it did just fine. And of course, we were preserving a lot of food as well because I love to grow tomatoes. And I see by your book, you're not so averse to growing tomatoes since you have a whole freezer dedicated to tomatoes.
Yeah, we like our tomatoes.
We are unashamed tomato snobs. We love all the different varieties of tomatoes. I think in our garden last year, we had about 100 plants of all different varieties.
Woof.
Right. Yeah, we grow about 50 different varieties of tomatoes.
Are you starting them from seed?
Yep.
Good for you.
And we start them from seed for us, and we also sell plants. So I start somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 tomato plants every year.
You have some help, I hope.
A little bit.
Okay.
The kids help.
Yeah, I would think what are the ages of your children?
The oldest is 20, and then there's almost 18, 15, 13, 10, and 7. It's like a quiz.
Yeah, it is a quiz. But you know what I like too? In the back of your book, you thank a lot of people, and you thank your children for participating in all the work too. And I like the fact that you thank your grandparents too. That's a good move.
Yeah.
I like that. Is there one or two that might just stick around and take over the place sometime?
I would hope so, but we want to support them to do whatever they're drawn to do. But I think a couple of them show aptitude, but don't want to jinx it. But
Yeah.
That would be a hope. That would be the hope that at least one or two would want to continue this.
And either way, they're taking parts of the lifestyle. Like, I don't think they're going to give up some of the from scratch cooking and the homegrown food, even if they don't want a whole farm.
Yeah.
An absolute great way to grow a family is by starting them off with the healthiest food possible, which is, of course, the food you grow yourself. Plus, by staying away from a lot of processed foods, you aren't getting them hooked on sugar. And they probably are, when they go into town and find some ultra-processed food that is sweet, it's probably too sweet for their own tastes.
Well, we would hope so. But, there are still grandparents in play who like to spoil the young kids. But we do try to.
They do notice the stomach aches after they go to.
They definitely do.
All right. Well, you're doing it the right way. That's for sure. Hey, on your farm, you've got 11 acres, and I think it's agritourism in a lot of situations, but you're basically running a flower farm, aren't you?
Yeah, in addition to everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, we started doing You Pick Flowers back in 2020 and started out with fairly modest amount of flowers. And it was a really, really a big hit that year, especially with, the first year of the pandemic. We were well situated to take advantage of that because we were a good outdoor activity. People could come out, do a essential activity on a farm that's outside, socially distanced. The malls were closed, the movie theaters were closed. So we didn't plan it that way, obviously, but it worked out and gave us a good jump start. And we've about doubled the amount of flowers we put in the ground every year since that first year. And we really focus on cut flower varieties, and it's been a real success. We do the You Pick Flowers, and we also sell through a local flower collective that puts local flower farmers together and sells to florists in our area to try to promote buying local.
Wow, sort of like community-supported agriculture, only floriculture.
Similar, yeah. It's the whole idea is just to
make it easier for the florists.
Yeah. Connect them with local farms in one as a one-stop shop.
What are your favorite cut flowers to grow?
My favorites are a little different than what does well with You Pick. So I like anything you can dry. So straw flowers and feverfew, and status and yarrow. And I grow a lot of kind of things that people sometimes think are boring. But then what does really well with our customers is zinnias, cosmos, sunflowers, celosia.
Yeah, custom celosia.
I do really like growing celosia. Every year in the fall, I say I'm going to be a celosia farmer.
That a picture of it I saw in the book that I thought the caption said clover, but it looked like celosia.
Yeah.
We really like also growing flowers that dry well. I mean, not only do we like to preserve our food, but we do preserve flowers en masse. And that's one of the ways we generate income over the winter is by selling dried flower bouquets that are grown, dried, and arranged here on the farm. So not only is it the ones that you just hang up and dry like status and celosia, but Staci has gotten really good at freeze drying sunflowers and zinnias, and they hold their shape and color remarkably well and are just beautiful in a dried flower bouquet. Looks really neat to have a fully formed, really beautiful zinnia in a dried flower bouquet at Valentine's Day.
Okay, now you're almost convincing me to buy that appliance, that freeze dryer, but we're going to get into that in a few minutes and talk about that because you do have a section in your book about freeze drying flowers, which was very intriguing. Now, as far as saving food for your own family, according to the book, you're only using about a half acre for that?
Yeah, less than a half acre, really.
About 4,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And that's for a family of 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some market gardening. We're also selling some at farmers market.
Yeah, a little bit. We're increasing that this year. And
right now is seed planting time or a seed starting time in your greenhouses.
Yep.
And it looks like you have a couple of hoop houses. I imagine there was a greenhouse in there.
Yeah, we have the ones that look like hoop houses in the book function more like greenhouses because we do heat them. And then we also have a new greenhouse this year that I'm really enjoying. It has heated tables and an insulated north wall, and it's really staying warm so far. But we're having a really weird spring, so it's been like lows in the 50s. We're having May weather right now. I'm not even sure what to do with it.
We've had a lot of days in the 70s through February. It's been weird.
Yeah.
I've noticed that here too. It is an early spring, and of course that means the bugs are out already.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about how you guys got into this business of flower drying, food drying, and being on a farm. And Staci, you don't really come from an agricultural background. You were born in Florida, raised in Hawaii, went to school in North Carolina, where you met Jeremy, and then ended up in Southwest Missouri on a farm.
Yeah. So I actually went to college here in Southwest Missouri, but met Jeremy in North Carolina. I was just there for a month for school. But yeah, it's been weird. I mean, I've always been interested in like the past. My master's degree is in history, and the way people lived, and was really my interest, not like wars and politicians, but how families functioned and how they grew food and all of the things that go with that. So at some point it just, like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Rather than reading about it, decide to live it.
Yeah. Well, Staci, you say in the book that when I graduated, I didn't become an archaeologist, but it made me realize I could live differently. I didn't always think it was as practical as I do now. I learned I could do things people didn't think I could do, and I could do things other people didn't want to do. Sounds like the country was made for you.
Woohoo. Yeah.
Well, that's good. So, yeah, and you've been on the farm now for about 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Going on it.
Yeah.
All right. A few of your children, though, probably remember experiences in suburbia. Did they adapt well to moving out to the country?
Yeah, they pretty much all did. They liked, even when we lived in town, we spent a lot of time outside, and we did have a garden, and we did preserve some food and do things in town. So the main difference out here is freedom for them. They have a lot more room to run around outside, and animals. The animals are huge, and there's a lot more work, but that's they have a lot of fun with it.
So you have what? Chickens, pigs, cattle?
We have chickens, rabbits. We have a lot of rabbits, goats, sheep, pigs, and I think we're up to 6 cows.
Yeah, dairy,
mostly dairy cows.
So far.
But some of them are little babies. We have 2 that we're milking right now.
And to dissuade people from thinking that, well, here's a family that's growing and eating all the food that they grow. But you point out in the book that it doesn't make sense to be growing food that A, the whole family won't enjoy, and B, there are just some things you shouldn't plant for yourself because, heck, who wants to go out and do things like grains and salt and sugar?
Yeah.
Right.
So you have threshing wheat really isn't on our on our menu.
Right.
Yeah, right. So it's not a case of being a permaculturist or something along those lines. It's more of a case of just growing what your family enjoys, and also from an agricultural standpoint, what will sell, and also how you can preserve it. I like the idea of your pantry, how when you first started canning, you had like 50 jars of tomato sauce, and now you have over 1,000.
Jars total.
Jars.
Yeah.
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 That's a lot of tomatoes.
Yeah.
It's not all tomatoes.
Yeah, we have one section of the pantry that is all tomatoes. We aim for 80 or so quarts of sauce a year, and then about 50 jars of salsa and 50 jars of pints of tomato soup. That's our goal tomato situation. And then we have, all the jars of everything else.
So then we get to enjoy fresh throughout the growing season.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Now, you had to do some calculations before you planted anything because, A, you want to plant things that your family will enjoy, and you want to have enough, but not too much. And that's the decision that a lot of home gardeners are facing is, well, how much of all of this do I have to grow? And I like your advice of saying, hey, if it's too much work, if you can't grow it where you are, if you don't have the time to grow it, Costco's just over the hill.
Yeah, and so is the farmer's market. You can talk to your neighbors. There's so many options.
Yeah, we have produce auctions around here that you can go to fill gaps as well. And a lot of people, I didn't think as many people had the produce auctions around, but they're a lot more prevalent around the country than I thought they were.
That sent me off on a search as well because the term produce auction was foreign to me. So I figured, well, maybe we call it something else. And sure enough, we call it something else. In a lot of situations, it's a flea market. And of course, we have some very large farmers markets as well to take care of your needs as far as if you want to buy something in bulk.
Yeah. I mean, around here, we have a large Amish and Mennonite population who grow in massive quantities, and you can buy bulk things. And a lot of stores and fruit stands and roadside stands around here just go buy from the Amish auctions. But again, even if it's not that, there are lots of options. One of the things we talk about in the book is developing a relationship with local grocery stores, food wholesalers, people like that. And anytime they come up with excess produce, sometimes that's a good outlet. We love to buy quick sale bananas by the box, slice them and freeze dry them. And those are great snacks for the kids. And you can get a good deal on them.
Oh, there's that word freeze dry again. Okay.
Sorry, I keep going back there.
That's okay.
We're jumping the shark a little bit.
We're really into our freeze drying.
We'll get there. But yeah, I think, we'll talk about freeze drying in a little bit. Tell us about your pantry, the temperatures in your pantry. How big is your pantry? And do you have a root cellar?
We do not have a root cellar. Our house doesn't have even like a usable crawl space. It's just on a rock, basically. So our pantry used to be the formal dining room in our house. It was an addition to the house. It's built on to the back of the kitchen, and it's about 7 feet wide and 16-ish feet long. It's like a hallway. It's very long and skinny, and we built in the shelves around it. They can withstand anything at this point. I think they made the room stronger. They're so sturdy. But the temperatures in the summer, it can get kind of warm in there. It can get into the upper 70s. But in the summer is not when we have the most amount of food stored in there because we're kind of low at that point. Then when we start putting stuff back in, and in the fall, as the temperatures drop over the winter, the room stays in the mid 50s for most of the winter because it is an addition and it's not as connected to the heat of the house, which works out really well for most of the year.
Well, that's good. And being you're in Southwest Missouri, I would think you would have, I know you have higher humidities than we have here in California, which in this situation might help you out.
Yeah, it's the humidity in the house in the winter is pretty low, but most of the year it's average.
Yeah, it's pretty average. And then the other big thing that we did, the most important thing we did from an environmental standpoint in the pantry was to cover the windows to inhibit sunlight because sunlight is actually a much more detrimental effect to your food than the temperature.
Unless it's fresh food. Like when we keep, like squash and sweet potatoes and stuff like that, we do move them around some and don't keep them in the pantry the year round. We keep those in a cooler place in the house and then move them. And then we have a sun porch that is not heated or cooled. So it basically is like a walk-in cooler over the winter because it's close enough to the house that it doesn't really freeze. And we do keep a heater in there on a thermostat to make sure it doesn't freeze. But it's refrigerator temperatures or a little bit warmer.
We use it like a winter root cellar.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly what it would be. Well, congratulations on having cold enough winters to be able to do that.
Exactly.
I like the fact
be some positive to it.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you have one section of your book, and it's simply entitled, and it's one of my favorite sayings, "Don't forget to feed your soil." That's where it all happens. That is the hardest worker on your farm or your backyard garden. But you have to replenish the soil. You can't keep using the same soil over and over and just fertilizing it. You need to mix in some nutrients for the soil. And you talk about your compost.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have worm bins?
Our main thing that we use in the garden is rabbit manure. That is our workhorse amendment. Because it's a cold manure, it doesn't burn your plants, and it's kind of just like a all around. I don't know. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
That's what we've been doing for the last 5 years.
And if we dig into our garden where we've been planting, just digging out one little shovelful, we're going to find more worms than you'd find in a normal worm bin. So the soil is incredibly alive.
Yeah, we use the rabbit manure and then we put waste hay from our goat barn. So the goats have kind of eaten what they wanted, and most of the seeds are gone. We don't really worry about adding weed seeds to our garden with hay. And then we put that hay on top of the soil, and it breaks down over the winter and feeds all of those.
And they're very soaked in goat pee. That's a nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
Sounds
smell very good.
Sounds like you've read a couple of Ruth Stout books in your time.
Yeah, I have. I have her book.
All right. I like the fact about freezing whole tomatoes. I did not realize that you can put ripe whole tomatoes into gallon bags and put them in the freezer and then process those into sauce over the winter. That seems like a great plan to have for tomatoes.
That is the best shortcut.
Yeah, it solves so many problems. When in the summer, when you're so busy in the garden, you don't have time to be standing over a canner and blending tomato sauce and cooking down sauce and doing all those things. So one, it enables you to put it off without any detriment to the quality of the food. Two, it enables you to heat up the kitchen in the canning process in the winter whenever you actually need extra heat in the kitchen rather than August when the tomatoes are peaking. And three, if you make a lot of sauce like we do, a nice effect of when you thaw the tomatoes, they're going to release about 75% of their water immediately, and you don't have to waste energy cooking off that moisture. It just comes out from the thawing process.
You could just dump off this clear water from your thawed tomatoes.
And you're already halfway cooked down or more.
Yeah.
Are there varieties of tomatoes that take better to that freezing technique than others?
Bigger tomatoes work better in general, but like we've used every kind of slicer, all the sauce tomatoes. I mean, sauce tomatoes, you pour off less water, but they really all work just fine. Cherry tomatoes, we do still freeze them, but I don't like to use them in sauce as much. It's just not enough meat versus skin and all of that. But with the cherry tomatoes, we'll put them in a vacuum freezer bag and then thaw them and like cook them straight into pasta whole.
What else do you grow besides tomatoes? And I know you do because your kids would rebel if all they ate was tomato soup. So what else are you growing that you're preserving, and how are you preserving those products?
We do a lot of jams and jellies. Our kids go through a pint or even more jams and jellies probably daily. In the kids' oatmeal and on their pancakes, we don't buy syrup. We use fruit jams. So that's a big part of what we can. And as far as what we grow,
we grow a lot of green beans, onions, cucumbers. So we do pickles and summer squash and zucchini. The summer squash and zucchini we freeze dry. We mostly freeze dry our beans at this point because you can can beans, but I don't like mushy canned beans, even though Jeremy does. So we freeze dry them. And we also grow broccoli. I'm working on cauliflower. It doesn't like it here. It's too hot. What am I missing?
Okra.
Oh, and peppers.
Yeah, lots of
tons of okra. When we freeze dry the okra also, and tons of peppers.
Sweet peppers or hot peppers?
Both.
Oh.
I do both.
Yeah, both separately and as an ingredient in our salsas and tomato soups.
Yeah. We do about like 150 sweet peppers and another 150 hot peppers.
And also all of our herbs we dry, and also, not to jump the gun, but freeze dry. A lot of our herbs, oregano, basil, thyme, rosemary. I know I'm missing some there. Dill, cilantro. So we love our fresh herbs.
You mention in your book, The Preserver's Garden, a lot about growing your own herbs, and that sounds like a great thing that even people with not much room could do, because herbs don't take up much room.
Yeah, they're a great gateway preservation food, because you can do it on a balcony. You can even do it in your kitchen window. You can grow enough to put away a jar at least. And one of the things about preserving your own food, like you said, growing the food is one thing, but then consuming it is another. If there's a food that you just really love, or even just like, try growing it yourself and you'll love it even more, because it's going to be that much better. And herbs are a great example of that.
Okay, where can I buy a French fry tree? But you do grow potatoes.
Yeah, we do grow potatoes. And I grow a variety of green beans called Goldilocks. They're bush beans. And I don't know what it is about them, but if you cook them in a frying pan with a little bit of salt, they remind me of French fries.
Oh, okay. And you have recipes in the book, too, I should point out, too. And in your section about garlic, you have a garlic chicken recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just about preserving, but one of the main themes is trying to help people grow the food that they're going to preserve, and then to know which varieties of food are going to preserve the best, and then which preservation methods work the best on which food. So it's kind of tries to take it full circle, but we try to give people practical ways to use the food once they've grown it and preserved it. Sometimes we mix the preservation methods too, like fermenting your Napa cabbage to make your own kimchi is wonderful. And then if you freeze dry the kimchi, you get these wonderful chips that are just delightful. So you can have a lot of fun experimenting and inventing new things.
By the way, there are a lot of good sources for information about food preservation. Of course, there's this book here by Jeremy and Staci Hill, The Preserver's Garden. But I know here in California, there are 34 counties whose cooperative extension offices support the master food preservers. And they have a lot of great local information about preserving what grows well throughout the state of California. I imagine there are master food preserver groups throughout the country, just like there are master gardener groups. And one online source for good preservation information, and it's one I've used for years, is the National Center for Home Food Preservation at the University of Georgia, which is nchfp.uga.edu. But if you just do a search for University of Georgia Home Food Preservation, I'm sure that site will come up. And I imagine that you get a lot of information online as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we got here. So since we're pretty self-taught, we've, did a lot of Googling over the years.
Yeah, as you mentioned, and from the book, that Staci had no background in this. I grew up in a family on a farm with, some food preservation happening when I was a kid, and I've soaked up a little bit of it. But that's one of the motivators behind writing this book is that preserving food, whether it's canning or whatever, has become kind of a lost art. And it only takes a couple of generations for that skill to completely go away and people to be completely reliant on buying all of their food at the grocery store or eating at a restaurant. So we just wanted to try to help find a way to practically reintroduce this skill to people so that they could learn a little bit and then pass it down to their kids, like was commonplace a half a century ago.
One of the old techniques I remember as a child watching my mother was water bath canning. And do you do a lot of water bath canning?
We do. All of our tomatoes are water bath canned. We also do applesauce and peach and pear slices.
All the jams and jellies.
All the jams and jellies and the pickles are all water bath canned.
How big is your stove?
Just a regular 6-burner gas stove.
We did upgrade from a 4-burner standard one to a 5-burner.
Yeah.
Okay, well that helps. Matters.
We used to can when we had an induction glass top stove, and we would do a lot of canning on a turkey fryer outside.
Okay. All right. Now, you do talk about 2 food preservation techniques in the book that I am not that familiar with, and I hope you can enlighten me, and that's fermenting and, of course, freeze drying. Hello, free subscribers. Welcome back to that infamous Beyond the Garden Basics podcast paywall. There's a lot more information about the Preserver's Garden, including how-to information regarding preserving your backyard vegetable bounty with such techniques as fermentation and freeze drying. And in today's newsletter, we're going to go into depth with pictures, links, and more university-backed sources with more information about food preservation. Again, though, it's going to be the paid subscribers that will have access to the complete podcast, as well as the information and a human-reviewed transcript in the Beyond the Garden Basics newsletter. Paid subscribers have access to a lot more, including a bonus newsletter each week with more garden tips for success. For example, a recent paid-only bonus edition included a year-round vegetable and flower planting calendar for USDA Zone 9. And paid subscribers also have access to previous editions of the Beyond the Garden Basics newsletter, as well as priority in getting your garden questions answered. Beyond the Garden Basics subscriptions are reasonably priced, $5 a month or $50 a year. And your support helps keep the newsletter and podcast alive, and frankly, it also helps keep me alive as well. I appreciate your eyes and ears on the Beyond the Garden Basics newsletter and podcast, and you can find it all on Substack.com. Thank you very much.